Hi, everybody, and welcome back to episode 11 of Her Playbook podcast with Devon and Jaden. We're very excited to be back on our chairs. It's been a long hiatus, but it's because we've been very busy.
Yep. We have been flying around the world. We just got back from Europe and we had the most amazing time ever. Do you want to explain a little bit about Hamburg and
I do.
what happened?
So originally, kind of like what we said last episode, is Jaden and I we're about to leave for Hamburg, which was this King of the Beach tournament, Queen of the Beach tournament. And it was a different style of play than we've ever played before. And it was so much fun. We had no expectations going into it. When we got there, travel went relatively smoothly. We get there, I think we did like one practice and then we were playing the next day. And Jaden and I had booked our flights so that we were out. Jaden and I assumed that we were going to lose. So we booked our travel plans afterwards with that in mind. And then it comes to Thursday and we ended up winning the whole thing. So it put us into the semifinals on Saturday. Yeah. So we had to do a bunch of travel changes of plans, which was a little stressful, but it was such a fun environment there.
Yeah, I just described the Thursday day as one of the most shocking days of our lives. We had to play at 5 p.m. that day. So we were just kind of sitting around and we were waiting until our time. And I remember we were just kind of feeling a little tired. We were like, okay, we need espresso shots. So we went to a coffee shop and got some espresso and headed over to the courts. And we were hoping to just get 1 point. And
literally, that was what we had said before the match, is we were let's just put 1 point on the board.
Yeah. I mean, especially playing against international teams who we have no idea who they are. We have no idea the level that they play at and who, what they do. And so competing against these girls, we were like, oh my gosh, they're so good. But we just ended up having the best time ever. And in between points, we're huffing and puffing and just trying to. I just remember having the most fun time ever. And yeah, and then we were on to the semis.
Yeah, it's definitely a trip to play at night. You sit around all day. So for our typical tournaments, it's you wake up, you have that excited feeling, and then you have a breakfast and then you go. But then you have that feeling all day and then you play at 5. So it's you're warming up at 4. What do you do the rest of the day? We kind of didn't really know what to do. We went to the gym and stretched out, and then we got lunch. And you have to have a lighter lunch because you don't want to play too heavy. Yeah. And then, we were dead on energy, and I'm I need something to get me going. So we had an espresso. And then, the feeling of winning that day was just so special because it just was so unexpected and it was so fun. And we just had a fun little group around us too. We had Timmy's parents, who's our friend from USA. And then we had my mom and your boyfriend. So it was just it was a very fun, little crew. But it also was a big reminder to me, that whole international trip, of you really do have to love and get along with your partner. Because if you don't, you're screwed. That if me and you didn't genuinely have a friendship behind the scenes and it was more like a business, those trips would be so boring until you play volleyball. And I would just that's not how I want to spend my time, because we made so many memories outside of the volleyball that I take with me as well, that makes those trips so great for me.
Yeah. I mean, especially it's super common to fly all the way to your destination in Europe or wherever you're playing and have to play in a qualifier to get into the tournament. And then you play one of the best teams and you end up losing. And you kind of have to make a bright side of the trip. You have to do something else. You have to plan things and go around, maybe explore. And if you're doing it with someone that you don't necessarily get along with, like you were saying, it's just a business thing, it becomes super uncomfortable. And then you think, is it even worth it?
Totally. And so then we ended up playing on Saturday in the semifinals. We didn't make it out of the semifinals
because we were playing against Sarah Hughes and
Kelly Chang and other future Olympians and past Olympians. And for sure. Again, we didn't expect to make it out of Thursday. So we were just grateful to be there on Saturday and see the experience. We played 2 rounds on Saturday and then we were finished. And it was kind of fun to finish because we got to go watch the rest of the rounds. We got to go have a drink, hang out with our family and our friends. Our friend Lexi surprised us in Germany. We kind of knew it was coming because her location was off, and I was like, and she had talked about it. But it was just so much fun. Like we had like a whole group of people there then that now like the volleyball part's done. Like we had so much we were looking forward to. For me personally, I flew right from Hamburg to Paris and had the time of my life. My mom and I had a couple days in Paris, just us two. And then that's when you joined us, but you obviously went somewhere first.
Yes. Nate and I went to Mallorca, Spain, and it's my new favorite place now. It was so beautiful. The water was like crystal clear, and we just got to kind of relax and play things that we enjoyed doing. So that was great. And then I met you in Paris.
Yes, then we met in Paris. And like I said, like we had a complete travel change. So like we were originally supposed to have like a couple days in Paris with my mom, and then she was supposed to have like a day or two with me. And then because like everything got pushed back, it was going to be all messed up. So then Jaden and I ended up extending our flight and our trips out, and we got completely blessed to stay at the L Hotel. And so we had the most like amazing stay. We went to the best food places you could imagine. We walked around. We got to see like where the Olympics are going to be held, which for me like lit a fire under my butt because it just felt so special, and like to even witness like what's happening in Paris. And that,
cool.
like, it was just, it like Jaden and I, we needed to find a place to get like a quick snack, and we ended up stumbling upon this like completely like booked scenery of the Eiffel Tower, and the Eiffel Tower had just been put with the Olympic rings. So like it just felt very real, like the Olympics is coming to Paris, and it's like coming very soon. So that was already like incredibly special.
Yeah, I loved Paris with you. So much fun to walk around, and I've always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower, so that was amazing. And then the fact that the beach volleyball like court is right by the Eiffel Tower is so cool, and I'm just so excited to watch this year and just get to see that from like another perspective. But yeah, coming back from Paris, a lot of things happened, a lot of things changed. You moved into a new apartment and started a new job.
I did. I got to extend my stay a little bit longer in Europe because my boyfriend was in Italy at the same time. And so then because our trip got all sorts of delayed, I flew to Italy for a couple days to spend with him and his family, which was so precious because I knew that my job was starting and I was moving into a new apartment, but I didn't understand like how different my life's gonna look from that point. And Jaden was just saying this now, like I'm in the honeymoon stage of this apartment. Like I truly, like, I went to bed the other night and I texted my mom and I was like, I am literally on vacation. Like, is this my life? Like, I open my balcony door and like I have a straight shot of the sunset, and I'm like laying in bed in my like new feel so clean. Like I'm so organized right now. Yeah. And then I started my job on Monday, and it is amazing. It's with Love Volleyball, which is the new pro league that's coming out for indoors, like domestically in the US, which is already so exciting. So the fact that I get to be a part of that has been special, and now I'm like officially a part of it, and it feels really cool. Work is definitely like, it's not your typical 9 to 5. It's fully remote and it's like different hours, but it's definitely a little stressful at first because like I just really have to be organized because like there's some priorities in my life right now. Like I'm really really loving playing volleyball, and that's like my dream career. So like that's a priority. Staying on top of work and being really involved in that is a priority. Seeing my friends and family is a really big priority for me. So like I'm juggling that and I'm getting the hang of it. Yeah. But it's just been, it's been really fun so far. I don't know when this honeymoon stage will end. I hope it ever doesn't. But
yeah, June's been crazy. Another thing that we are going to talk about is recruiting. And June is a big time for that because June 15th is the day that juniors in high school are officially allowed to talk to college coaches. And so that just happened.
Yeah, it did. Recently. And I knew June 15th was a big date because we had tried to schedule a practice with one of the coaches, and he was like, no, June 15th, like I got to be near my phone 24/7. Yeah. And I was like, why? Because like when we were getting recruited, way different. And so when he had said that, June 15th hit, I opened up my Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, everyone's committing. Like all of the commitment posts, because people must have had it like already assumed that you're going there, so then they can officially say it once they get on the phone call. I'm sure there's some suspicious ways people are doing it.
Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, crazy time for juniors in high school. Crazy time for everyone. I mean, recruiting is can be like so stressful.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it got pushed back. Maybe do you want to explain what it was like when we were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference is that we just were able to talk to college coaches and commit just at a way
Whenever,
earlier
right?
age. Yeah, I mean,
there was no, I don't think there was ever like a, because I remember hearing like, I remember talking to college coaches like very, very young and people
girls were
recruiting
committing
them.
in 8th grade.
Yeah. So for us, it was very different.
Yeah.
But then again, like we always say, like it's different in terms of timing. It is not different in terms of what coaches are looking for, what you should do to put yourself in the best position, and all sorts of stuff. Do you want to kind of run through what your recruitment process was like?
Yeah. Well, quickly, I want to say I think the new rule and the change to it being junior year is the best.
Amazing.
Because
amazing.
Yeah, like being in 8th grade or being a freshman in high school and even a sophomore when I committed, you're so young and you don't know. Like
you think you do. You really do. But how can you possibly imagine what college you're supposed to be at when you haven't fully experienced a part of high school?
I know.
It baffles me. And like, I think that this change is so amazing. And I'm sure girls in high school originally weren't happy about it when it first came out because they want to get the process started and stuff. But for 2 reasons also, I think it's so amazing. One, because for the coaching staff and for the own athlete, people, you don't know how you're going to turn out. No. Like I have seen so many girls, like beyond amount of girls that freshman year of high school, they are the athlete of the year and they are the best player on their team.
Yeah.
They commit to like a top 10 school. And then by their senior year in high school, they're getting decommitted because it just didn't. They were playing their freshman year. And that's devastating to these athletes and to these coaches who like expect one thing and they don't get it. And then the athletes have to completely change their life plans. And then it's such a great thing for the athletes because there are also so many decommits from like people or decommits from where they originally chose their college when they were 14 years old. And then you realize that, oh my God, wait, I want to be close to my family. I don't want to be going across the US to play.
A lot can happen from your freshman year of high school to your senior year of high school.
Yeah.
It's really typical too for people to fall out of love with their sport, especially if you're putting all your energy and time and love into one thing. It's very typical for that to happen. So again, I think this new rule is for the best. And my experience was it was kind of short-lived actually. I remember being in, I think it was like freshman year of high school, and that's when my mom and my family started talking to me and being like, where do you see yourself? And I was doing like a lot of research. And in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to be close to home. So, you know, schools that were super far away, I just kept those out of my mind and didn't even want to go visit. I just had this kind of like set in my mind. And so when people were reaching to me and college coaches were recruiting me, I really only went to a few camps. I first set up a highlight reel. Those were really big back in the day. You'd to YouTube actually.
Oh yeah.
And my mom definitely helped me with that one, but it was just so funny because I wanted to be very removed from the process because it really stressed me out. And my mom was very on top of it. So she helped me a lot with putting together the reel and posting it to YouTube. And then that's when college coaches would reach out and say, hey, we'd love to see your daughter at our camp, blah, 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 blah. So I went to a camp at UCLA and I went to a camp at USC. And I didn't go anywhere else. And I kind of did similar things at both schools. I played in the camp. I did a tour around campus, went to a football game, talked to the players, talked to the coaches. And after both were done, I went home and I sat down and I was talking to my parents, and they were just trying to get me to compare them. And when I was comparing them, ultimately I found that UCLA was going to be the right school for me. But it was so interesting being 14, 15 years old and having to make such a big decision about the rest of my college career and those super important and prevalent time of like your life. But I remember the only thing it came down to for me was the players and the coaching staff, because I knew I was going to be around them the whole time. And also the culture of the team. So I mean, both campuses were beautiful in their own ways, but it was really just the feeling I got. So I still have this video on my phone of me like talking to Stein, and I'm like literally a baby. I'm 15 years old, and I just like laugh because I remember it so perfectly. And I'm on the phone with Stein, and it's just like so funny. And my mom's like jumping up and down in the background, and she's like squealing, so excited. And yeah, that day was huge for me because that marked the day that I knew what I was doing. And I went to like high school the next day with like my friends, and I just felt so cool. And yeah, that was a huge day for me. How about you?
I think that like, I feel like you were like almost like following the right steps of recruitment. I did not follow the right steps of recruitment. Mine was a little different because I was so heavily deciding between indoor and beach. I almost knew immediately that if I was going to beach, I'm going to UCLA. Like that kind of decision I'd already made that decision. I loved UCLA. It also just felt really comfortable for me. But I did go and I didn't do any highlight reels. I got incredibly lucky that one of the tournaments that I was playing at, a couple of the college coaches had already like watched and like was sitting there watching me. And I remember seeing Stein like sitting there with his umbrella and his chair just like posted up on my court. And like, I was so fired up. And I was so excited to play, and it didn't really make me nervous. I was more like, okay, I'm so excited to show him what I can do. And so then I had a couple of phone calls with him back and forth, and then I got my offer. And then it was really like, he didn't really give me like a necessary like hard deadline. He was just like, try and make the decision like within like the next couple months probably. And so I went and toured a different school, and I loved it there. I realized for me academically, it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So I kind of took a step back, but I did like truly love my visit. And I think like at that point, like word had gotten back to Stein that like I went on this visit. He wasn't not happy. He knew probably that I had to be going and doing these visits. I also toured SC, hated it from the bat. Like for me, it was not the school for me. I did not get good vibes. So I did not go there. Toured a couple more schools for indoor throughout my career and whatever. And so I got the call from Stein when I got back from Arizona, and he was like, did you go on an Arizona visit? I didn't mean to say Arizona. When I got back from the school that I toured, I got a call from Stein, and he was like, did you just go on a visit here? And then I was like, yes, I did. And then he was like, I'm giving you a hard deadline. You have 2 weeks to make your decision. And I was like, oh shit, like everything's coming at me, like I poked the bear, and I was so stressed. I was like, oh my god, where'd my happy Stein go? And so I had a couple conversations with my high school indoor coach, and I asked around a lot about like what people were thinking of their school and like indoor versus beach and whatever. Ultimately, what's crazy is that like at 15, I had to think about what I wanted to do post-college as well. And I knew I didn't want to play indoor volleyball post-college. And I loved beach post-college, like the traveling internationally and coming back home and being able to have a home base and AVP. So that really was what drove my decision to go for beach. But it was a incredibly stressful process. Also like dealing with, have you ever had a coach maybe who wasn't like nice about the process, or like maybe didn't handle rejection well?
I mean, I talked to only like 3 coaches, and one of them just came in with an offer that wasn't going to do it for me, which kind of upset me. So that was like a hard conversation that had to be had. But no, nothing really was hard other than that. Just kind of like trying to fight for myself and like advocate for myself, because that's hard to do as well when you're so young.
It really is.
And talking to people in like such a
power dynamic.
Yeah, it's a power. They have authority. They're in this position that, you know, you want to be there. So it's like, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? So yeah, going through that conversation was hard, especially being so young. But did you have a conversation as well?
I had one where it was when I was calling to say that I was committing to a different school, basically. And it was just a very cold conversation. Like, I think they had really thought that they were going to get me. And I was really sure I wasn't going there. And so when I had to have that conversation, and it was really uncomfortable. And like, the power positions, like I'm having to tell this person who's like in a higher power of authority than me that I'm making the decision not to go with what they did. It was just really weird. And I put it off as long as I could. And then my mom was like, you just gotta like rip the Band-Aid off. But I think that something like recruiting has so many different pieces of it that like you don't expect and that are like huge pieces of it. I remember like there was something as little as like Stein telling a story, I remember, to either a couple people on the team or a couple of parents. I don't remember where I heard this, but he was saying that like one of the reasons that he really wanted me on the team was because when he was sitting at that match and he was watching me, he was also listening to my parents talk. And my parents are the loveliest humans, and they always cheer for everyone. Good volleyball. They love everyone. They love watching. They're never gonna like make it only about Devon. And so during the tournament, he said he would hear my parents like cheering for the other girls on the other team and like being so friendly and talking highly about others, even though they had no idea he was sitting behind them listening. And I think that toxic beach parents are a very big thing in this world. And if you can keep them as uninvolved in your recruitment process and as uninvolved in your like help behind the scenes is amazing. And you're going to need help from your parents because it's incredibly stressful and they know like you best. But you never want the parent that's going to be the one that doesn't get you your offer, and that the one that people are a little scared about and hesitant towards and that they hear about on the beach. But that also goes back to attitude, is because Stein also saw that when there was a game where I was losing, and he also needed to see how I was going to treat my partner in those moments and how I was going to react. And that's way more important than me being able to put a ball straight down or not. Definitely. So there are just like so many different aspects of recruiting that I've learned throughout the years that I wasn't aware that was being looked at when I was getting recruited. Yeah,
we've talked about it a little bit before, but you just want to always be thinking like, who do I want to be known as? Like, on the beach, because the beach volleyball community is so small. It's going to get around, especially in high school when there's coaches that are looking to find athletes. You could be the best athlete, you could be the best volleyball player, but you can not get recruited if you have a bad attitude and if you're treating your partner poorly, or if you lose and you go off and you are rude to your parents. Like that could be such a small thing to you, but to everyone else and to college coaches, that's what they're really looking for.
100%. I also think that there's so many amazing tools that are out now that were not out when we were getting recruited. Like I've seen a bunch of people who are college athletes go on to create like consulting companies solely about like recruiting and like how to get yourself in the best position to do so. And like if you have the opportunity to do that, take that opportunity, because they have all of the steps in order. And also just like talking to so many people, because you really should. Everything can change and like you can transfer and you can decommit, but like if you can look at this as like putting yourself in the best position to thrive in college and not about like those temporary decisions. Like I remember even having a bad experience with some girl at UCLA before I had gotten there, and I remember thinking like, oh my God, am I making the bad decision?
Right.
And it's like, but I know myself long term, and I know that like I want to be at this school, I want to be here, I want to be doing this. And it's like, had I listened to that inner thought and let that one little interaction that I felt off about be like, okay, well, I'm not going to this college anymore because I didn't like that girl. It's like, then that's not setting myself up for success. That's like falling into that little path.
You kind of just touched on it, but if you were a sophomore or maybe junior in high school, what kind of things are you looking for when you're going to college campuses?
Ooh, good question. I went to a bunch of different college campuses, and honestly, like I would come off of everyone being like, I love this place. Cause like you're looking at, I'm such a young girl, I'm looking at all the independence and these huge, amazing buildings and all the resources you get as student athletes that I'm like in awe.
Stars in your
I was
eyes.
like, oh my God, I want to go now. And so I think that for me, I wanted to feel like comfortable. And so when I did tour SC, how I knew it wasn't for me is because the beach volleyball courts were amazing. And like I had no problem with the team and I didn't have problem with the coaching staff. It was honestly like when I was sitting having lunch and I was looking around at the people around me, I felt this sense of discomfort and I felt really like out of place there. And I think that that was like my biggest indication, like this is not the school for me. And like you should have a sense of, I feel kind of safe here. And like whether that be that the coaching staff is giving you that safety, the teammates, you know, people who are going to the school, Those are the things I look for, and I did look for. I think that it's really easy to, as a young high schooler, to look at your friends' recruiting paths, and also to look at where they're committing and maybe want to go and do that because you have friends there. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you are going to make friends at whatever college you go to. So it doesn't have to feel comfortable at first. It could be the most uncomfortable process possible, and it probably will be. But even if you're walking in not knowing anybody, my recruiting class, it was me and 2 girls who were best friends in Florida.
Yeah.
I was horrified walking in. But then obviously I knew of people on the beach. It's a small world. But I made the greatest friends, even though I was technically like walking in alone.
Right.
What about you? Do you have anything that you were looking for specifically?
I would just add, think about the location and like what you're going to want to do outside of your sport and maybe outside of college. I think back to UCLA, and a lot of my greatest memories are actually, they have nothing to do with UCLA, but it's just living in LA, being so close to the water and the ocean. Like, I grew up like that, so I knew in my heart that's what I wanted. So if you have the luxury to do that, and also just, I would think a big part of it for me was how bad are you wanted. And when you're talking to your college coach, or maybe your potential college coach, like, how are they talking to you? Do they listen to you? Like, are they respectful? A lot of the coaches that I've seen, the way that they talk to girls is kind of interesting. And I think that's a huge part of it. How you get along with your coaches and your coaching staff can make or break your experience.
100%.
So if you're not getting along with your coach, or they're not responding to you, or it's just like you don't really feel like you're wanted, I feel like that's a huge part of it as well.
Totally. I think that it almost reminds me of like a job interview. And one of my best friends, Trey, he had always told me that like when you're going into a job interview, or if you're going on a first date, these are like the 2 things, they might be interviewing you, but like you interview them back. Like, you're also trying to find out if this is the right fit for you, just as much as they're trying to figure out if you're the right fit for them. So like trying to change the perspective of like, I have things to learn too. Like, if you think of yourself as like the prize, and like you could, even if this isn't true and you're not the number 1 recruit, but you think of yourself the way you should and the confidence in where you know you can go, then you should treat yourself as such. And so when you're sitting down with college coaches and they start talking about money, and they're not going to give you any money, but you think that you deserve it and you have a place to where you can make a huge impact on the team, have those conversations. Don't go to the schools that make you feel like that. I think that's amazing. Do you have any advice for how people should like talk to college coaches, as in like what kind of like tone or like the interactions and stuff? Like, how did you communicate with the coaches?
I think honesty is probably one of the most important things. I think that could be really, really hard, especially, we were talking about it earlier, but being so little in comparison to like this college coach that has so much power. I think one of the best things that you can do is be honest and ask the hard questions and get all the information that you need to get, because ultimately it's your decision and it's your life. And I think if you're constantly just trying to people please and go about it like that, like, you're not going to get everything out of the coach. For sure. I mean, also always being respectful, and you don't want to ever like come off as rude, because that college coach will not be communicating with you anymore. But yeah, I think it's totally fine to ask questions and to, ask if you can talk to people on the team. There was a lot of times when girls from my club would reach out to me and ask if they can talk to me about UCLA, my experience, and I think requesting that is totally normal. And
it's a good idea.
Yeah, so that's kind of the things I'm thinking of.
Do you, I think we should talk about official visits. And I think that official visits and unofficial visits are petrifying, and you never know what to expect. You don't know how to act. You don't want to be like, I don't know, for me at least, I didn't want to be like my full comfortable self, because I'm not comfortable and I'm trying to like impress the people that are going to be my future teammates, who I also like look up to so much. Right. And it was like an incredibly uncomfortable thing for me. Do you have any advice or kind of an overview of like your own official and unofficial?
Yes. Well, my official, it was different because I had to go on another weekend because I couldn't go to the real official visit weekend. And I could only stay for a day and a night because I had indoor volleyball, like CIF, I don't know, some sort of game on that Sunday. So my mom and I drove up together on Saturday morning. And so I got to hang out with the girls on Saturday, walk around, go to dinner. And I think we went to a game of some sort. And then my mom went to the hotel and I was able to hang out with the girls. And this doesn't really happen anymore. I think that there's been too many bad experiences with this kind of thing. So I don't think it's really a problem anymore, but I'll just share my experience. I ended up hanging out with some girls on the team, some older girls, and we were all hanging out and I had a drink or two and they took me to a frat party, and I just went there and I was really excited and I was just trying to fit in and have fun, and it ended up going south. Not because I like drank too much, but something happened or something got slipped into my drink and I was not okay. I had to be Ubered home, and my friend Savvy, who lifelong friend, she ended up having to come help me and take me to my mom's hotel room. And I woke up the next morning and I kind of had just was completely disheveled and had no idea what happened, which was really strange considering I had like 2 or 3 drinks. So that was really hard waking up the next morning because I was like, is this normal? Or like, is this what college is like? You know, I was scared that UCLA was going to be this kind of unsafe area for me. But I ended up driving home the next day with my mom and I felt completely okay, but it could have been a lot worse. So yeah, that experience was a little rough and a little sad for me just because it made me less excited to go there. Thankfully, that didn't happen to me again, but actually roofing is a huge problem in college campuses and it happens everywhere. So yeah, watch out for your friends, watch out for yourself.
Thank you for sharing. Do you think that like coming off of like a probably like bad recruitment trip or official visit, how were you able to, because even if like you're on one extreme end, there are people who come off kind of worried about what they did or their visit isn't what they expected it to be. How do you move forward with that?
I think just walking into that weekend, it should be less about trying to hang out, like be with the girls and like be fun and do all this like crazy stuff, because you're gonna do that later. Like you're going on the official visit because you're going to that school. And you're gonna be teammates with them eventually. Like you'll have your fun, you'll have your moments. I think that weekend it's important to like hold yourself accountable for being respectful. And if people do ask you to go out, which is totally fine, but I think just knowing your limit and being safe and being careful. And yeah, you just don't want to make a bad impression. And what's funny is we had a class that
I was just thinking about this.
They came in and they went out and we were kind of we were playing the next day. So this was a big deal. I'll make it short. They went out, they had too much fun. They caused problems, and the whole next day, everyone was pissed off. And we were like, who are these girls that are coming into our team? Like, are they going to cause problems?
And they had to have serious conversations with the coaches too, to be like, listen, like, we don't know if we want you anymore. And then for us, I will never forget, we all talked about it and we were like, and one of our teammates at the time who was leaving that next year, so wouldn't be with them, she was like, thank God you're not with me, because like you would have a real problem if I was still here. I couldn't even imagine being on the other end of that. I think that what you said is so true. Have your fun. And like, I don't really know how officials work now. I do think that going out is a part of officials still. I think that just with our team, it's probably not anymore. But I think that be safe, be respectful. And I also think that like how you feel the next day is more important. And like, I know that like, even though on my official visit, I had like a wonderful time and like I had the best time with my teammates and like we went out and we had a great time and it was a wonderful night. I still woke up that next morning and I was like, oh my God, did they think that like I was too much? Did they think that I was too comfortable? And it's just like, all of those feelings can be avoided, and like the anxiety you have the next day about the whole thing is so not worth like compromising anything on Saturday night or Friday night. And so I do think that official visits are incredibly scary already. So like do what you can to like learn about like teammates on your team and like get to know other people. I used it as a great opportunity to get to know my class because I hadn't met those two girls yet. And so like it was really important to me to just like get along with them. Because I remember having a situation in my official visit where there was just some situation that made me not want to come there anymore. And I was horrified. I called my mom and I was like, I don't think this is it for me. I'm scared. Like, I don't know. I think I made the wrong decision. And then I like took a breath and I like really just hung out with my class and with you, and I felt like, okay, this is why I'm coming here. And like, I felt very grounded and like remembered why I was going there. And again, it's the same thing with recruitment. Like, don't let, like you are coming to that school for a reason. Your coaches saw something in you, and hold on to that, because even though you're going to be surrounded by people you idolize and by people who are older than you, like hold on to the fact that you deserve to be there just as much as they are right now. And like, it's also a place for you. And I think that's something I really admire about our team and like UCLA is that like we do such a great job of there's no hierarchy. There's no that the fifth years are better than the freshmen. Like the freshmen are going to have their say as well. It's their school as well. And it was so great to see. And yes, I'm sure there's going to be some seniors that are not on that same wavelength and it's going to feel uncomfortable, but just get through it, stick to yourself, and like you're going to be fine.
Yep. It's not worth it. One weekend for your official visit is not worth your
It'll also like fully get around. Everyone will know about it.
Everyone will know. Yeah. So be careful, be safe. And I think that does it. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching or listening to episode 11 with Devon and Jaden.
Yes, we have very fun things coming out, so continue to stay tuned. We're going to stay on top of it, and we're excited.
We are. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.